All right, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Having a technical difficulty with the Facebook platform for some reason. Sorry about that. Um, but anyway, we're live on YouTube at least. So if you're uh, watching this on YouTube and you want to share this on your Facebook platforms, and feel free. For some reason, the streaming software is not allowing the stream to the YouTube or to the Facebook platform, which I've had issues with in the past, and I don't know why that is. But hello to you, everybody on YouTube here that's watching, and sorry for the technical issues. But anyway, I'm going to try to work around this in the background here. But for the time being, we are streaming live here on YouTube for the 6-year anniversary celebratory live stream of Midgard Musings. We've been kicking it here on social media for 6 years now. I am joined here with Patrick Dear Whisperer Walsh, who is the creator of the Heilung Mental and Spiritual group on Facebook. With me also is Eric Wordweaver Shervin, the content creator behind The Raven's Call, also the Wordweaver Productions community on Facebook. And we've got here on screen JM Bright Spirit Olafson, who is the mastermind behind Fjallvatir Workshop, Bright Spirit Arts. We're going to hear more about all of these gentlemen here in just a minute in a formal introduction, as well as some additional guests that are going to be joining us here. But thank you all for tuning in and joining. Hello to everybody. We got Sheeny, Michael Thacker. We've got Kay Hopper. We've got Taylor R. Everybody that's watching on YouTube, I'm going to try and work around a little bit in the background while the guys here on screen are going to introduce themselves. But thank you so much for tuning in tonight for this 6-year anniversary live stream. And thank you, Patrick, Eric, and JM for being here tonight. Good to see you guys.
Happy to be here.
All right. So as I go through things, I'm going to just allow kind of each person here on screen to talk a little bit about themselves and introduce themselves to you if you haven't been aware or know who they are. So we're going to start with Patrick over here, Dear Whisperer Walsh. So Patrick, let people know who you are and what you or where people can find you.
Hello, again, my name is Patrick Walsh, and I am the founder, creator of the Heilung Mental and Spiritual group. But before that, from the original start, when I first discovered you, I was just your introductory pagan heathen trying to figure stuff out. I discovered your content, and from there, followed you on YouTube for a bit, and then we became fast friends, and then just kind of kickstart from there. But to anyone else interested, is on my Facebook, and I strive for high lung celebrations as well as mental health and spiritual health awareness.
Awesome. I'm going to share also down here in the comments for folks, since they're on YouTube and may not know, where people can find you, but it is on Facebook. So check out Patrick's site there. It's linked down in the comments of the live stream. He's on Facebook. He's got I forget how many followers or members of your group do you have now, Patrick?
Have
6,000, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say 100 or 1,600 or something like that.
1,500. Yes.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good following, man.
It is.
But when I
started this group, I just never expected that reach. I just started this with the intentions of helping people out, as well as do my thing.
Yeah, so it's definitely a group that is focused on Heilung, but with the focus on mental health, spiritual health, and there's a lot of good content that gets shared there on that platform. So do be sure to follow him or join the group. I help admin the group, so if you can when you join, answer your security questions. For the members that join, there's just a couple of questions that get asked when you join. Make sure that you're answering those, so that way we know that you're a legitimate person and not some sort of bot or scammer or anything like that. We don't need a quick rich scheme spamming platforms and stuff like that. So, all right, cool. Down to, I guess, JM Bright Spirit Olafson. Welcome to the Love Show, and JM, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thank you for having me on. JM Bright Spirit Olafson, as Jesse mentioned in the introduction. Take Care of Fjolvatir Workshop. Weird in every sense of the way how we're also connected. We just talked with Patrick mentioning the Highland Mental Spiritual Health Group and healing through music. I make percussion instruments. I make drums by trade, but also other percussion pieces, rattles, shakers, other tools and instruments to aid you in your spiritual journey, that animistic sort of walk of life, outside of major religious specific tools or things geared toward a religion, but more in your spiritual need, connecting with the earth and things like that. I've also got Sacred Trail Society that I'm the founder, co-founder of, along with Jesse here. It's a great work in environmental awareness and conservation, getting out, getting active, to lead by deed, go out and take care of these shared spaces. They're diminishing every single day. So it's only right to do our part to help maintain and preserve them, as we're the ones destroying them in a sense. Bright Spirit Art is a new collection that I've got outside of Fjolvatir Workshop. That's a little more geared toward me sharing my spiritual self with the public and the tools and instruments created there.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, and I have shared the link for the Bright Spirit page. Sorry for a bit of a. I'm copying the links that go to Bright Spirit Art through Fjolvatir. But again, it is definitely centralized and focused on JM's animistic work through drums, rattles, and other I don't know, like spiritual ritual items. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you to Mimir's Well. Congrats on 6 years. Mimir's Well. Let me put the emphasis on the first syllable. So a lot of folks that talk in these old Germanic languages want to put emphasis elsewhere, but it's Mimir instead of Mimir, right? So Mimir's Well says congrats on 6 years. Thank you very much. Believe their channel is contributing to a lot of musical and spirituality through song, that sort of thing. So appreciate you commenting. Thank you very much. And thank you, JM, for sharing more about that, as well as the Sacred Trail Society. You can find Sacred Trail Society on Facebook, as well as through, I think it's AppalachianAnimism.com. Am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Okay.
It's
So I'll come back.
AppalachianAnimism.com. If you type in Appalachian, it won't work.
Oh, so Appalachian is it the writing or the spelling or the pronunciation that you're
If
calling?
you're even thinking Appalachian in your mind while you're typing it in, even if you spell it exactly correct, it's not going to come up for you. It won't work. It'll get mad. It'll turn off your computer.
Okay. Well, we will definitely come back. If I'm missing the, actually, you know what? I found it because I know how to spell. Welcome back, Eric.
Technical difficulties.
That's the theme so far, because Facebook doesn't want to stream to the platform for some reason, even though I had it set up that way to do it. But yes, AppalachianAnimism.com.
Apparently lag is the theme as well.
We're lagging, or you're lagging. It's all good. We're just gonna muscle through. Susie is hello Susie Fowler.
Hey,
Found you
Susie.
guys. Susie's in the APAC region, so she's down there in like Australia. So it's like 11 a.m. or something on Saturday, Susie's time. So thank you, Susie, for being here. Hello, Dragon Dancer. Hello, Leaf on the Wind. Leif was just a recent guest on my podcast just a couple of weeks ago. So thank you, Leif, for tuning in and watching. But yes, Appalachian Animism, links down here in the comments right now. That takes you to the site for more about Sacred Trail Society. Rick is on the way. Thank you, Misty. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me turn it over to Eric Shervin, who just joined us, who is the content creator for The Raven's Call and is behind the Word Weaver Productions platform on Facebook. So over to you, Eric.
Hey, yeah, my name is Eric Shervin. I am the also known as Word Weaver. The YouTube channel that I have is The Raven's Call. It's basically an introductory and sometimes deeper subject educational platform. Basically, it's me rambling on for 45 minutes at a time about whatever kind of heathen-related subject strikes my fancy at the time. Now, of course, the YouTube channel's been on hiatus here for several months. As has my TikTok work, which you can also find on there under The Raven's Call, or it may be under Eric Word Weaver Shervin. And then I've also got Word Weaver Productions, which is my Facebook group, and that's where I post a lot of the things that I've been working on. Again, I've been on kind of a social media hiatus here for a while. Not unusual during the dark times to kind of step back for a little bit. But that's kind of what I've been working on. I also have a book out there, The Saga of Bjorn Thorolfsson. It's easier just to search my name. It's on Amazon and the Kindle shop. So that's out there. It's a series of short stories centered around a storytelling format intended to pass along kind of heathen virtues, heathen worldview. It's keeping alive the old narrative tradition of living life through the story. I'm a huge fan of narrative. I'm a huge fan of the storytelling aspect of things. That's my craft. That's what I do. Hence the Word Weaver deed name. That's my drive. Of course, I'm also the Godi for the Ridgar tribe here in East Texas. And we've been going strong since 2010, I think is when we founded. And founded up at Lightning Across the Plains back in the day. A little shout out for those heathens that were there for those events. Which is a lot of fun. So yeah, that's basically where I am and what I've been up to. Hoping to get back into content creation here really soon.
Awesome, thank you, Eric. And yeah, the Lightning Across the Plains thing. I came into like online heathenry and found myself in heathenry after Lightning Across the Plains had kind of ran its course. But I've heard so many wonderful things about it. I know one of the things that I've taken a lot of inspiration from in building my own tribe, or I say but building our own tribe here in Middle Tennessee, came from another person who was very influential with Lightning Across the Plains. You can help me remember his name. Maybe was it Michael? He wrote a book, or he had a heathen tribes essay or something that he had put together. What was his name?
You're talking about Mark Stinson?
Mark Stinson. Sorry, Michael. It was an M that stood out in my mind, but yeah,
it was an M. With the Michael. I was like, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mark it's that Mark Stinson. Joining us right now here at the moment, let me just give a quick shout out to Ulf Blutraven, who is the current Godi of the Cleary folk tribe here in Middle Tennessee. I'm chieftain of the tribe, and Ulf is the standing Godi as it is right now. So welcome to the live stream, brother. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Voodoo Viking says hail from Louisiana, and Michael Stacker says, congrats on 6 years and to many more. But as I was just saying before you joined here, Ulf, we already had the introductions of Patrick Walsh, J.M. Olofsson, and Eric Shervin. Hridgar had, you said was started at the Lightning Across the Plains. So was that kind of the start of the Hridgari, as it were?
Not technically. Our tribe started originally out of our East Texas Heathens meetup group. It was originally myself and Mike Spires that started the tribe up. He and I kind of.
That's why I said Michael, because I knew there was a Michael there, and I remember.
Mike and I met at the very first East Texas Heathens ETH meetup, and I was actually on my way to go see Blue Oyster Cult that day, and then I saw that there was a posting for a heathen meetup, and I was like, oh, this doesn't happen every day. I need to go to this. And faithful day, because that's exactly what happened. Went and hooked up. He and I met. Our families just kind of jived, and we ended up talking for a good long while. That was back in, I want to say, 2009. So take that back. I think we founded in 2009. Because it was September of 2009. We went down, and he had talked up LATP and everything because he had gone the previous year. And so we went down. This is after we had already kind of talked about the structure and everything of Hridgar and how we were going to go about it. Because originally he was the chieftain and I was the Gothi. This is before he later left to go pursue theism. Which isn't my bag, but that was his. And the more he grew into that, the more it was evident that he needed that element for himself. And so back when we first started, there was a mixture of kind of Norse Icelandic and Anglo-Saxon approach to things. So the name Hridgar itself is a cognate of Hrith, which is the Old Norse for storm, and Gar, which was the Anglo-Saxon for spear. So we're the storm spear tribe. Consider ourselves the children of the storm, as it were. So we founded there at LATP. I say that we founded there because that's where we took our first kind of tribal oath. We later restructured the oath to fit our kind of paradigm a little bit better. And we've been going strong ever since. Mike passed the reins to me several years ago. So now I fulfill both the priest and chieftain class role, kind of more of the traditional Icelandic Gothi approach. So, that's the short story of the founding of Hridgar.
That's fascinating, and thank you for the kind of the background of it. And guys, we're gathered here on the platform right now to celebrate 6 years of Midgard Musings, and the reason why we've got the folks here selected for this sort of live stream celebration is because I know a lot of these guys. Well, I know everybody in person except for Eric. However, I know Eric through social media, and our relationship has kind of maintained over the last 6 years because, and little story time here, when I started the channel and when I started Midgard Musings, it was initially started as a mind fire, a sort of spark, an idea to talk about the stanzas of the Havamal and to go through each stanza of the Havamal in sort of like a 9 stanza a week format where I would stream live and talk about what I, got out of each stanza of the Havamal. And as I went through that process, I kind of was inclined to look for ways to have a in-person grassroots connection with people in my area. And so as one would do over social media, you start Googling things, you start going on YouTube, you start going on these various places, right? You start like, how do I do this thing, that, or the other? And I found Eric's channel. And one of his videos that I found was how to kind of establish a grassroots, group of people in your area. So a lot of the things that have happened in the Middle Tennessee area through my efforts were inspired by Eric's video. And I'm really glad to have Eric here because, he's so influential, even though he's not actively present on social media now for his reasons. He still has he left a big enough of he splashed enough in the pond and the ripples kind of went out far enough to inspire people. And I know I'm not the only one. I like to think I'm not the only one, but he's definitely done a lot
Yeah,
of good in that effort.
You're not. I've had several groups that have messaged me off of the YouTube channel and let me know that they had spun up groups out of their stuff, because there's a couple in the Midwest. There's one over in Louisiana that had all kind of been like, hey, I saw your stuff on Grassroots. I really want to do this. Can you tell me how to go about doing this? And even let me kind of help out with some of the basic structure of, getting their version of the park moots set up. And I'm still doing all the park moot stuff. I'm still doing all my ETH work. I'm just kind of cut back on the YouTube and TikTok. I was doing TikTok real heavily there for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I noticed that you do a lot of the ETH park moots. You guys kind of have like a standing rotation of monthly meetups when and as, time and weather permits, I'm sure. Much like we have here in our area, like there's in our area in Middle Tennessee, there are these, they call them PNOs, so pagan nights out. It's not during the night, but that's just kind of how they call them. But yeah, you've definitely been a positive influence for myself and others. So thank you for being here. And we've all got, positive positive influences here. Patrick is doing his work through the Highland Group and advocating for mental health, spiritual health. Of course, J.M. Olafson, as Bright Spirit, is doing his animistic work through ritual items, drums, rattles, other sorts of things out in Appalachia. Did I say it right? Not Appalachia, Appalachia. And of course, Ulf here has come into our fold, into the Thurity folk tribe as the standing Gothi of our unit. So I'm really glad to have everybody here to, share in this celebratory live stream. And one of the things that I was hoping that maybe we could lean into a bit with the live stream is, 6 years is no small duration of time. When children grow and become 6 years of age, they're entering into their very early years of learning and development through like kindergarten, and they're going into like that stage of learning who they are as people and all this sort of thing. So to have a social media platform, to have any sort of standing for 6 years, I feel is kind of like a milestone in a way. And everybody here, the majority of everybody here right now has known me or has followed the Midgard Musings platform for the duration of this 6-year span. So I was hoping maybe to get each of your thoughts or your ideas on what has stood out to you about Midgard Musings over the last 6 years. Maybe a video or a post or something. I don't know, maybe an individual interaction with me personally that you would like to share with the listeners, the watchers, the viewers here today as we celebrate this. So in keeping in the fashion of introductions, Patrick, do you want to share your thoughts on what you're kind of found your influence or your inspiration or what kind of stood out to you for with Midgard Musings over the last 6 years?
More than happy, and this is a story I never get tired of talking about either, especially to my friends. Though is again, going back to the start of the introduction, is about me and myself. Is just there's that one fateful day. I was just looking on YouTube how to perform a basic heathen ritual. Now, granted, I'm not proud of saying that I went on YouTube to search for such a thing, but the way things turned out, I couldn't be more grateful and more happy to have taken that course. So, with that said, I was just looking on YouTube. I see a bunch of people who are like very super like, oh, be sure to check out my page and buy this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, Dad, I'm on a stream. So sorry, just give me a second here. But basically his oh, please forgive me. So what stood out to
Memories,
me,
right? Memories.
yes, memories. Thank you.
They
Yeah.
trigger certain feelings. I get it. No, it's cool,
Anyway,
man.
sorry.
Thank you.
So I was looking on YouTube and just trying to find some quality content. And for anyone interested, that was my dad who walked into my room there. I should have kept the door locked. But anyways, with that said, I was looking for a way to go, a direction to follow, and a practice that I could appreciate and really understand. Now, when I saw your content, Jesse, like when you redid the first video I saw from you, how to perform a basic healing ritual, you said that it was cringe or not quite, to the standards what it is today. But me personally, I loved it. I love the aesthetics. I loved it in a way that you're on the same page I was, more or less. Like you might have been a couple chapters ahead of me in that book, but you're still, making a name for yourself. And I was beginning to introduce myself. So having someone who wasn't too confident, I guess, or too, there we go. Yes, thank you. That's a perfect link to include there.
Just going back to the archives. I mean, it
Exactly.
was
Yeah.
it looks
That-
so, and I had to kind
It
of
does.
don the old attire in light of it. So, but yeah.
I
Sorry.
loved it though. When I was watching that though, I'm just like, this guy, something about you stood out to me. Something this man, this guy is genuine. He's not doing this for profit or for notoriety. He's coming from the heart. And I like to believe and still believe to this day that I'm a good judge of character. And then I started following your page, your content, and then we met a mutual friend of ours, Matthew, from Odin's Beard Woodworking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then past that, I discovered Papa, Lightspirit Olson. This amazing man. I mean, his content, his personality, all about him. He's just an amazing man, and that coincides with you as well. This vault of amazing people who are not just introduced to my life, but part of my life. That play a very pinnacle role in my development, in my support, and just my overall being. And to have shared that moment that we all did, all of you too, at Far the Mountain, this kind of solidified my intuition as to following you from the very start. That I knew that there was something special about you. I knew that you had something to offer, but also that something I am happy to say that I offer to you. And that's something I treasure very deeply about interactions, be it a live stream or private messages we send each other. It's just something that's been nothing short of a blessing and a learning experience and so much more in my life. And that's something that I'm very proud to be here on your 6-year anniversary for Midgard Musings. You offer quality content, you're genuine, you're not shooting for likes or any of that crap. You're just being your true self, following your true path. And I couldn't respect that more.
Thanks, Patrick. That video that you mentioned, the how to perform a basic heathen ritual, it's one of the videos on my channel that has like the highest views. It's like 8,500 views.
Jeez.
And I did a review. I redid it from a request that you had made.
Yep.
It's because of the quality of it. It was like there was some quality issues and stuff, but that's great to hear that was the kind of spark that led you down this path and let you pursue an interest in where you're at and allowed us to connect in this way. So thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. Also, to add to that before I forget, is it added a lot of meaning and experience to this. Because it'd be one thing if I followed some other random guy on YouTube and just would have left like to my own devices.
There's plenty of them. I mean,
exactly
like,
right.
I'm just a guy.
It could have gone so many different directions. I'm just very happy that it led to this direction. And this what I said earlier though. Very proud, very happy, very grateful.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. JM, you got a story to tell, or you wanna weigh in on that?
I do. I'm going to get a little selfish. Some of my favorite and fondest times with Midgard Musings, Random Heathen Ramblings, are the times that we've shared together, coming onto the podcast with you, just rambling on. And it really tells you a lot about your relationship with a person, the way that you're able to carry on conversation, how the conversation flows. Is it awkward? Do you have to pause, think of something to talk about? But I've never had that with Jesse. It's just we've had to cut ourselves off a lot of times. Even coming out of a show, like, all right, it's been an hour after the hour. Let's got to get stuff done. But like Patrick was saying, in what you do and the content that you create, it's very appreciated. And Patrick, you said that you felt bad that you had even bothered to go online to find a source or to find a resource for information like that. That's what it's there for. That's why these guys are creating content. That's what they do. It's to help and to share that knowledge with people who might have a question. I know of at least two guys on here who do a wonderful job of that. Ulf, if you've got a content channel, I've missed it, and I apologize. You'll have to get me the link.
Well, I've thought about it, but I've never. I don't have the computer set up, so I've never really figured out how to do it yet. It's one of those the bucket list.
Well, I'll just say, on that note, I don't have a computer either. I just post from my iPhone. So I feel like if you follow your heart and make the content that you desire to do so, you can't go wrong. I think your content would be very great. A lot of people can relate and
It would
appreciate.
definitely involve a lot of snakes. I'm just going to throw that out there, and probably a lot of randomness, like Jesse does, just random ramblings because my brain is a cluster.
Yeah. Well, the neat thing about the 90% of who we have right here, right now, Ulf, Patrick, and JM, and myself have met each other in person. We work together in person to varying degrees, and what Ulf has contributed to our tribe, to Chlyridi folk, in the capacity of his service as our Gothi, has been. It's hard to put into words, and that's one of the things about talking about these things is like we want to, at least where I've come as a content creator, is I'm not so much worried about the views, the likes, the attention. There's certain things that Eric mentioned earlier, I think a bit offline, about going insular, focusing more on the grassroots, focusing more on the tribe, focusing more on the hearth aspect of things. When we reach a point in our practices that we see the importance of that, it's not like, well, let me just blast this on social media. To me, there's like a fine line with that. There are very good and very valuable content creators that are sharing some parts of that sort of thing to the world, right? They're showing aspects of ritual. They're showing aspects of things that are not fully revealing the privacy, the intimacy, the secular sovereignty of their practices, but they're sharing enough tidbits to show and give inspiration to people.
That's absolutely appropriate. A lot of people want it all. They want to see it all. They want to get that invitation into your bedroom. Where do you sleep? What's your pillow look like? But you've got to draw that line, like you said. Social media can be a wonderful, wonderful tool. Patrick, like you mentioned, you were able to find information, the content creating that's out there. It's got its downside, but it can be a wonderful tool. And it's allowed each of us, or most of us here, to follow up on the use of that tool and meet in person and develop these relationships and these friendships that we carry on today.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Farron's point here, Farron Farland, I post the Midgard Musings emoji, but YouTube took our membership away. That has to do with me being demonetized on this platform that I'm currently streaming on. Ironically enough, the only platform that I can stream on. So
yeah, that is kind of funny, because I had a
cool.
friend of mine message me like, "Hey, what's up? I can't access your live." I'm like, I can't even.
I
wanted to try.
Yeah, no, I shared the YouTube link to the Facebook platform.
Yeah.
so there's technology, right? I don't control all of this as much as I would potentially like to. I can't and I won't.
Potentially.
But there's we're here streaming live on YouTube. But thank you, Farin, for saying that you would like to post the emoji, but you can't because of the membership thing being taken away. And that's this is one of those things. The reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing the way that I'm doing it is not out of interest for becoming the next biggest social media sensation. You know. So anyway, JM, I didn't mean to take away or derail from anything that you were saying, but was there anything else that you want to say before we move on to Eric?
No, that's okay. Just the last time that I was on with you, we got to share a little bit of that experience from the last fire on the mountain. When all these things are connected, we met through Midgard Musings, developed that relationship, met in person. Another spark started. We started working on this program together, this men's spiritual retreat, and it's grown and grown and blossomed and reached so many people in such important and special ways. So to get to come on that last episode that I was invited to and share some of those experiences with people who have been interested or curious about the event and the retreat was something very special to do alongside you there.
Yeah, 100%. Just to kind of echo those sentiments for people wondering what fire on the mountain that JM alluded to before, what that is about. More to come about that. I know I don't share much about it on the YouTube platform, but when and as we kind of formulate a more structured outline of that, there will be more to come. So yes, and James been a repeat, attendee and guest on the show on Midgard Musings before the Random Healing Ramblings podcast came to fruition, and will continue to be a guest. There's a future episode coming up here in a month or two where he'll be returning on as a guest speaker. So stay tuned for that.
Sounds like that
Yes, always excited to have him back on here. But Eric, you are a very influential person for why Midgard Musings is here. Would you care to share anything about your views on the Midgard Musings production and things that have happened over the last 6 years that you and your views from East Texas have been able to take from?
Sure. So let me take you back. It's been 6 years ago. Here I am. I've started up a little YouTube channel. Honestly speaking, the Raven's Call was the spin-off channel. My original channel was Weaving Words, which was my little storytelling thing. It all started at one of my ETH meetups, and they were all like, "Hey, you need a platform to tell your stories," because it was big on fireside storytelling, and you need to go do your storytelling online. I was like, okay, cool, I'm down with that. So I was like, all right, let's have a little contest here. I'm going to poll the people and see what they wanted. And so 2 names came up. There's the Raven's Call, and there was Weaving Words. And so I decided I'd do 2 shows, and I'd just do the Raven's Call as a little throwaway thing where I sit here and ramble on about heathen stuff periodically. Nobody's going to really want to listen to that. It's just a thing. They're going to go for that storytelling thing. Nope, they went for the Raven's Call. And so I was like, okay, I'll start making this thing. Start kicking it off, get talking. And then out of nowhere, I get these comments start popping up. I was like, hey, cool, another heathen content creator. Let's go over and see what he's up to. So I check out Jesse's stuff, and I was like, hey, cool. Here's this guy who is brand new newbie heathen. You were in it like, what, 2 to 4 years, something like that, when you first started up the channel?
Yeah.
And you were still pretty young in the process at the time.
Very green.
Yeah, I mean, here I am. I've been heathen since my teens, so I've been in it for a few decades at that point already. Here we just started chatting, started talking. I was like, I remember this fire. I remember this light and how it was when I first started out back in the day. And I didn't have like a mentor. I didn't have somebody who could help teach me along. I had to learn it all the hard way. I had to hunt down the books in the library. I had to hunt down every random PDF that existed on the internet. This was before anybody had big PDF libraries or was sharing files. This was before social media was really kind of taken off.
Right.
I think it was back in the days of like, I think it may have been before MySpace or during the heart of MySpace.
You're dating yourself, Eric.
I'm old. I'm
It's the
old.
AOL Messenger
Okay.
days.
Dude,
Yeah.
I remember ICQ. So I'm rocking along here, and he and I get to talking. And I'm like, I remember this fire. I remember this spark. And it was infectious. I was like, hey, this is cool. I want to foster this. I want to encourage this in any way, shape, form, or fashion that I can because I want to see what it turns into. And so Jesse and I get to talking. We become friends. We start hanging out online. Things are rocking along really well. And his creation kind of helped feed my fire to keep creating my own content. And so I was like, yeah, okay, this really is doing something. We're getting somewhere. So I kept rocking along and I kept making my stuff. And it was funny because we'd sit here and I'd do mine. And then a couple of weeks later, I'd listen to whatever Jesse's newest one was. And I'd hear something from mine parroted in Jesse's video. And I was like, okay, that's just cool. And then I got to see him progress and develop on his own, in his own directions, in his own tangents. And so it's just been really kind of cool in real time to watch you kind of grow into, what you are today and all of the hard work that you've put in. I remember when you were messaging me because you were starting up Loridi Folk and were, just getting them like, because there was that period where it was like, I'm gonna start up a tribe, and I'm like, slow down, dude. don't jump off deep,
Right,
take your time,
right,
let it happen organically.
right. Yes.
And he's like, okay, you're right. Simmer down. And you did, and then you took your time and you started to fold it right, and it just turned out really well. You didn't need me for any of that. You had it all under control. I was just there for the occasional, hey, good on you, keep going. Here's a tip, rock on, keep doing your thing. And so it was really cool to sit from a distance and watch something grow organically that I remember doing myself back in the day and seeing the different direction that you take it in, because I always enjoy seeing how different tribes do things. With me, I'm big on tribal heathenry. I'm big on the sovereignty of Hearth clan and tribe. And so I never want to step on another tribe's or Hearth's traditions and the way they do it. I want to step on their toes. I want to encourage them to be themselves. And then we can all meet at thing and talk about our individual ways about going about things. So yeah, that's the 6-year journey in its whole has been just kind of neat to see. And then of course the cool times that we've actually gotten to do some live streams and stuff together. Because you were always more into the kind of online personality element of things than I was. I was just like, if they find my stuff, they find it. But we were both going through those periods where it was like cringy, dodgy tech stuff. Like my early videos were done with just the iPhone camera, and I still just use my iPhone camera, but it's gotten better. And I got microphones and stuff, which made a big, huge difference. I was just using the onboard mic sitting out on the roadside while I was having a cigar talking. Yeah. And it's like you could hear the traffic going by. My early videos.
That old little fedora thing that you had going on there.
That was it. And
the
so,
cigar, everything. Yeah.
Yep. Rocking the Trilby hat. It was a Trilby.
There you go.
Like my first Heathenry 101 video, I've left it up there because it's the one that gets the most views, but man, it's cringe. The only reason I haven't gone through and remade it is because there's just so much information in there that it was like, nah, I can't go back and remake that thing. It's too much.
It would be a big thing, right? If you were to go and remake a video about something like 101, like I've done 101 Heathenry classes, and people are like, well, can you post it on YouTube? I'm like, nah, not really, because there's and how do you define the 101 stuff?
Exactly.
And like real quick, just to pause your stuff, Eric, not to take away from it, but I do want to acknowledge the introduction and welcoming of Zeb from Skogermaður in the Old Norse way. But Zeb is one of JM's men in Appalachia. And I've gotten the privilege, along with Patrick and Ulf, to share in ritual and ceremony and the Fire on the Mountain thing that we alluded to earlier. Zeb is here. We'll hear more about him in just a moment. But welcome to the live stream, Zeb. Thank you for being here.
What's up?
Thank you for having me, brother. What's up, guys?
But yeah, Eric, I mean, it's great that. First of all, thank you. I mean, I got to give a big shout out because I know Eric has a lot going on and he doesn't do a lot of the social media stuff. Patrick, you do your thing on the Highland group. JM, you've got Fjalvatir and Bright Spirit Art, and everything that you do, you're very regular and present on the social media front, as I am in your own respective ways. Eric is doing his thing in his way. But here he is taking time out of a Friday night in East Texas to come here and be present for this celebration. And as much of a celebration of 6 years of Midgard Musings that this stream is, the fact that Eric is here and present is a celebration of the Raven's Call, of the Hridgari, and what Eric is doing, because it's real. Right? It ain't none of this, yeah, sure. I'm dressed up like some sort of, I don't know, freaking like
Viking
History Channel, thing or whatever. Like this is, by the way, none of this is historically accurate. Let me just say this. Yeah, you guys can laugh and whatever.
Exactly.
Like none of this is historically accurate.
The
I'm
hair,
just,
the
I'm
hair.
just playing the part. The hair is maybe. You know what I mean? My face is maybe. These glasses. Historically accurate. Well, guess what?
No.
There you
I'm
go.
blind.
There
I'm
you
blind.
go.
I'm blind in both eyes, and I got astigmatism in both eyes. So, just like Ivar the Boneless couldn't walk. I can't see with these fucking things in my head. But anyway, we're here rocking it. We're here doing the thing. But anyways, Eric, thank you for saying all that you've said and giving that shout out. I appreciate what you've done. Real quick shout out to Voodoo Viking. The MySpace days ruled. It was true chaos and anarchy online. Fun times indeed. It was a wasteland of just the internet, and we were there for it.
Wild West.
It was, man. It wasn't it though. It was six guns out, shooting at the hip, just rocking
The
it.
OK Corral was ICQ, man.
There was no right click copy
No,
for your
no
new
shit.
banner. You had to type it in.
It
I
was.
really
Take your
appreciate what Eric shared, because for me personally, it kind of brings it all full circle. You said that you started this whole thing with some stanzas from the Hobble, and Eric sharing really drives home that brand kindles brand. He mentioned feeding off of you and that light and that spark, that excitement, and then you feeding off of him, and how that shares and goes in a circle and a cycle. So yeah, it really brought it all home there. So thank you for sharing that, Eric.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Ulf, do you want to share anything from your end? You've been kind of silent, but we're getting to your point, and then Zeb will come to you. But Ulf, what do you got to say, brother?
What's really funny is it's been 6 years since a mutual friend of mine and Jesse said, "Hey, I know this guy. He does this and this and this. You're gonna love him." Yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, you know a guy. Whatever's clever. And then flash forward to 2021. I had my own new death thing, and then 2022. It's like, well, maybe I really should meet this guy. See what this is all about. And then it was just kind of like, damn, this guy actually does know what he's talking about. He's not just some bullshitter who busy went wrong. Some of what we do has to be made up because only the gods know if we're doing it right. But he really had his head screwed on straight, and I'm like, I really could have had this 6 years ago. I would have learned a whole lot more. Been a solo practitioner since my teens. It's kind of odd to actually join a tribe and see how that dynamic worked. But I absolutely love it. I can't imagine not doing it. And watching the videos and there's stuff like, well, I never knew that or never thought about it that way. And watching the Midgard Musings, it's like, he makes a good point. I never thought of that, or I'll have to discuss this with him because I don't understand where he's coming from. And that's the beauty of it, is being able to do that with him on a somewhat regular basis.
Thank you, Ulf. And you actually had a position or an opportunity to be in another or in other sort of tribal units.
Yeah,
right. I think in the past.
Before I ever joined the Rudy Folk, I was actually part of a rather large group in Nashville. And it's just kind of one of those things. Is I kind of got the position a little bit forced, but wasn't unwelcome. And it's like, I never really felt right because they all had their own practices and they all had their own way, but that way didn't fit me. It was, there were Wiccans and there were some Druidics, some true Satanists, some Luciferians, things like that. I was like, well, none of this really fits me. And there wasn't a place, so to speak, for me to do that. I kind of stumbled into Jesse, for lack of a better term. It's like, hey, you meet this guy. Okay, I'll meet this guy. And we shared a fantastic meal. I got to meet his wife and a couple other tribe members, and I was like, this is something I think I could do.
I remember, Ulf, the night that we sat around a fire with Patrick, not Walsh, but our Thula. He couldn't make it for the live stream tonight, but we sat around a fire and we talked about the prospect of you, first of all, becoming Clearly Folk, part of Clearly Folk, right? There was this, again, a mind fire, an idea like, hey, is this even something that you would be interested in? This is kind of what we're framed around. This is what our worldview is. This is our custom, our law, our thew. We talk about in heathenry thew being law, right? Thew is the law of the tribe. And what thew is respective to each individual tribe. Eric mentioned earlier about not wanting to step on toes or infringe upon tribes, practices, structures, this thing, that, or the other. It kind of goes into that a little bit of an elevated view of heathenry, right? Thew is what the tribe formulates. It's that is law, right? So our customs, our law is Clearly Folk. It's not Cridgati. It's not anywhere else's customs. It's not anyone else's law. It's our customs. And so there was this kind of a sit down around the fire, and we were like, well, do you, here's our thing, and this is what we're about, and is this something you're interested in? And you said, yeah. And then we're like, well, we're looking to have an established Gothi, a spiritual leader, which for those that maybe are watching and don't know, right, what the Gothi is and who the Gothi or Githya, right? So we're talking positions of leadership. It could be male or female, but Gothi is the male, Githya is the female position of leadership that kind of presides over the spiritual growth and development of the people. And so that sit down kind of started. It was that spark for you, Ulf, I think, to consider.
Well, the thing is, I'd never been in charge of anybody's spiritual health but my own. It's always been me. I never worried about anybody else. But to be given the opportunity to actually, because it's going to sound strange, but I've always loved enhancing other people's lives. I love teaching. I love showing. I love sharing. And, being alone for so long, it was like, I can actually practice with other people and not get what the fuck are you doing, bro? Look, because they don't understand what I'm doing. And at the same time, be like, I can watch them grow and them learn from each other. Because there's certain aspects of ritual. It's like, well, this is how I do it. How do you do it? Because there's no wrong way to perform a ritual within your own hearth. When you have a tribe and that's your responsibility, you have to adapt your personal rituals somewhat into the tribe. And it's, like what we did at our last blot. It's like we added a few things we'd never done before. So I was like, well, this is how I do it. Are you okay with doing it this way? And if not, then we find the common ground and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Every hearth, every home is sovereign, and that's part of what Clearly Folk as a tribe pushes for. It's we believe in the sovereignty of hearth. So what you do is sacred and sovereign to your hearth, and none of the leaders of the tribe is going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. But when and as we assemble as the tribe, then we're going to have this precedent. We're going to have this standard, right? And you, having been welcomed into the tribe and worthed into the tribe, doing things and being present and participating in things, prove that, well, what we need to perpetuate, what we need to continue with the tribe aligns with this vision.
Mhm.
So that was the beautiful progression of Clear the Folk.
It's like
And we're
little-
happy to have you. Go ahead.
Just that little light in the darkness, just that little ding.
Right. Yeah. That spark, that the thing that lights, that you can carry forth. So Zeb, hello.
Hello.
Hello,
First of
sir.
all, I just want to give you a big hug and a fucking smack on the ass and congratulate you on the 6 years, man. Just pop right there at it.
Hell yeah. Right on the right cheek, please, if you will.
Right, G? I mean, I got big hands, buddy. They might go right in
You know
left.
what?
I'm sorry.
It's a 6-year anniversary. Just full palm on both ass cheeks. Just
There you go, man. All the way. Yeah, man, I'm proud of you, man. I just want to say I'm proud. I remember your early days. For anybody that's watching, I've known Jesse longer than I have anybody else on this panel. We have a history that revolves around music, as me being a musician. So we met many, many years ago, and I remember watching your early days, man, and I was like, finally, somebody out here speaking something that speaks to me. And I've always enjoyed that, man, about you. You've always been a real, you've always been 100, the education that you provide for your viewers. Even myself, man, I use your podcast a lot when I travel a lot for work, which, as you see, I'm sitting in a truck in a parking lot right now. And I love to listen to it, man. I listen every chance I get. And just watching you progress and grow over the years, man. I'm extremely proud of you for that, brother.
thank you, man. And I do say brother, right? I will reciprocate with that. For those that are watching, and even for those here on the panel, kinship titles are not something that I toss around lightly. I've known Eric for, well, we've talked about how long we've known each other over social media. But he does not call me brother, and I do not call him brother. Why? Because we don't have that kinship connection with one another that is only established through real life interpersonal relations. It doesn't take away from the fact that we are good friends, that we have benefited well from one another, and that we are, that we share in that reciprocity of acknowledgement. However, Patrick, for example, I've known him almost since the beginning of the Midgard Musings days, since its inception, and it wasn't up until the last Fire on the Mountain assembly that we imparted our reciprocal kinship titles to one another. JM the same way. There were things that had to be physically done to prove to one another that we could be considered as kin.
Mhm.
And just like you said, Zeb, right? You are brother to me. It's one of those things where it's like, in the brotherhood, the kinship titles, it's not tossed around lightly. It's not
Nope.
casual. It's like, if I need somebody, it doesn't matter distance, time, right? Like, there are things about what we've done interpersonally with one another that has solidified that title with one another. So, for you guys that are watching, Skogermor is where you can find Zeb. He's got a link tree that's here on screen, but he's on YouTube, he's on Facebook, he's on many other platforms, but his link tree is where you can find everything that he does. He does crafting of animistic nature. A matter of fact, what I'm wearing right now is a gift that my wife got me that Zeb crafted. So there's bone, there's wood, there's leather, there's it's part of my sort of ritual garb, which is why I'm wearing it right now. So yeah,
Appreciate
Michael,
that, man.
yeah, I appreciate you, dude. For being here, for taking the time out of your busy schedule, in your traveling aspects to be here.
I wasn't gonna miss it, man. Sorry for the lateness, but
No, you're good, man.
I think everybody that knows me on the panel knows I'm usually late to everything at this point.
You know,
So,
Shout out.
a wizard is never late.
yeah,
Yeah, nice.
but yeah, I appreciate that, man. But yeah, like you said, man, how we've solidified, brother. This isn't Hulk Hogan. How you doing, brother? It's
Right.
it's a true meaning, man. Recently, we've had some talks. You've been there for me, and that definitely solidifies our brotherhood there, man. And I appreciate you a lot. But again, man, 6 years. I can't wait to see when we hit the 12-year mark for you with the Midgard Musings, man.
Right.
It's going there, man. So just keep doing your thing. I'm always going to support you, and I'm always going to be there for you, man. And if you ever need the music, all you gotta do is holler. I got you all the time, man. So, but yeah, man, super proud of you.
Thank you. And as a nod to that, and I'm going to acknowledge the comment here on screen. We're going to take a quick break here in just a bit because we've been streaming for just a little bit over an hour. I want to give my panelists a chance to stretch their legs, piss break, whatever the fact is. I'm going to acknowledge this comment, but to your mention there, Zeb, as far as music goes, if you guys are listening and watching the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast, at the end of my podcast every week, there's an outro. And in that outro is a song that Zeb wrote for me personally. I released a video kind of version of that on the Midgard Musings YouTube channel. So you can go through my video catalogs to see that video. It's more of a visual that plays along the audio. But Zeb wrote it. Zeb did everything about that. And he's a musician. He's a performer. He's got stuff coming up, which I'm sure after our break, Zeb, if you want to talk to more of that, you're welcome to. I know you got stuff coming up this year. JM, you too. You and Zeb are both going to be at the same place at the same time.
I get to hang out
Yes, sir.
this coming weekend. I mean, he lives right down the road, but we get to hang out at this massive festival, and I get to watch live again to perform.
What everybody doesn't know is I'm just going to be like hugging JM the whole time next weekend because we haven't, even though we've lived 20 minutes from each other, life has been crazy. So we haven't really got to spend some time together. So I'm just going to be his shadow. Sorry, JM. Just letting you know now.
That's fair.
I'll just put my head right there, man.
I wouldn't
we could go.
I wouldn't take that. I would take that. I would say I wouldn't. If you were like, I'm just gonna hug you for the however long, I'd be like, yeah, cool, let's do that.
Let's do that. I'm pretty sure all three of us has hugged at the same time at this point in life.
Oh yeah. 100%. But to Michael Thacker's comment, he wanted to ask, in the past 6 years, what was the most memorable moment that I've had, on this channel?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So I think that the most memorable moment that I've had on this channel, on the Midgard Musings channel, was when I got swatted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I called that. Yeah.
That was when the local law enforcement officials of our fine county of Rutherford received a 911 call that I had unalived a member of my family or had done some sort of physical harm. There was two, right? There were two occasions. One was that I had stabbed somebody, and the other one was that I had unalived them. So in both cases, I was streaming live, and I had law enforcement literally like knocking on my door, kicking in the door, basically with guns drawn on me, like, put your hands up on the wall, mother effer,
Oh
like
my god.
that's probably got to be the most memorable experience that I've had
I'm
As it
legit.
would be.
I think
on
anybody
this channel.
watching it shares
Matthew Sarah
that
says,
same feeling and emotion.
See,
I was on that live, and I was like,
"You were."
"What the?"
What?
The
I
dogs
remember
started
when,
going crazy. They were
See
barking,
that?
and suddenly
yeah,
the door opens behind you, and there's
Yeah,
cops and guns.
yeah,
there was a whole thing back in the day where trolls would get on and swat live streamers because it was relatively easy to kind of dox them and figure out where you live. And I felt for you on that one, dude. I had never been so happy that I don't live stream than I did at that point. Like I'll jump into other people's lives and stuff, but at that point I
yeah.
was not live streaming. I didn't do anything live. Everything was pre-recorded. You got swatted, and I was like, "Yep, that's why."
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, and what was really interesting at that point, like Matthew Sarah was like, uh, I think Matthew said, yeah, Matt Sarah, he was just a guest on the show. He was like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, no, that happened, and the really interesting thing about that was, I was not. First of all, I was not, and I am not a big internet person. You know what I mean? As of today, I'm still like riding on the cusp of 6,000 YouTube subscribers, which is nothing. So at the time, I was like, what was I, like 2,000 maybe or something at the time. Like, why am I being targeted?
Wow.
It was
Right.
nuts. It was nuts to just be like in that position
That's
to
fucked up.
sit and be faced with that sort of thing. Michael, you're gonna have to check past live streams for those. It's like 4 years ago. It was in the early days, like relatively early days of Midgard Musings. I'll when this is all said and done, I'll post
I've got to
something
commend
about that.
Jesse. He wrote it out and came back and finished the show.
Professional.
It wasn't over. It was just a break while he dealt.
I was like, hold on a minute.
He
Wait a
came back
minute.
and finished.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You came
It was
back.
bad.
We're good.
But with that being said, I'm going to come back. We're going to come back. I would like to give the panelists here an opportunity to stand up, stretch their legs, take a piss break. We got about a almost 4 minute long intermission here. If anybody here needs to or wants to drop, feel free to do so. But for the 6-year anniversary live stream, we are joined with Patrick Dear Whisperer Walsh from the Highlung Mental Spiritual Health group on Facebook. We're joined with JM Bright Spirit Olafson of Fjallvatir Workshop, Sacred Trail Society, and Bright Spirit Arts. We're joined with Eric Wordweaver Shervin of the Pridgari and Raven's Call YouTube channels, Zeb Kroom of Skogormor, and Ulf Blutraven Gothi of the Pridgar, Hluridi folk. Keeping everything in line here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to post a video up here in the live stream comments. We will be back here in about 3 to 4 minutes. You gentlemen take what break you need. Thank you for your participation and support. Guys, subscribe to the channel. Check all these gentlemen's stuff out as and when you're able to. And we'll come back and we'll pick up on this live stream when everyone returns. So thank you so much for being here on this celebratory live stream. We'll see you back here in just 3 to 4 minutes.
Yep, I'll be back in a few.
Hello, folks. Welcome back.
Hello.
Matthew says, it's always amazing what people with no time on their hands will do. Yeah, it is. Thor has made himself known here, so I say you got his support his report.
Nice.
Voodoo Viking. Let me tell you, we had Thor roll through here in Middle Tennessee last night in the greatest of his fury. His lightning hammer, everything was just vibrant in Middle Tennessee here. It was spectacular. Which
That's
episode
awesome.
was this, Voodoo Viking? I gotta go back. There was a lot of there's been a lot of episodes since then, but I might come back into the comment section or the description, of the live stream for you later. I don't know when it was, but it was back in the day, back in the early days. No, Ulf is not taking us to piss. Cliff,
Hey, that's
who is
my
war.
job.
he was kind of going off, but let me add him back here to screen here. Yeah, he
Sorry.
said, "Is Ulf taking us to go piss?" Ulf, no, I don't think so.
No, I'm outside smoking and grounding because it's lovely weather.
Yeah,
Man,
brother.
That's a great
Hell
idea.
yeah.
That's a great idea, Tim. I wish I did that.
Yep. I'm having a cigar after this with a nice Guinness.
I hear cats.
Good night.
I need
You
to
doing
see
Guinness?
them.
Yeah, I've got cats in here. They're
Oh, that's
no,
awesome.
they're not getting on screen.
Oh.
Pains in my ass.
Oh, Maccabee is Maccabee Designs. This is wow, Maccabee Designs. This was thank you for commenting. Longtime supporter, actually provided a bit of jewelry back in the day. It's been great to see everything going well for you. Thank you so much. Be right back. Gotta feed 5 hungry dogs. Well, we know how that
Oh
goes.
boy.
Feeding 5 hungry animals. That's a thing. Eric, how many times do we have to take a shot when you used to say it's a thing
It's a
during
thing.
your shows? It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Right?
That
That was a running joke, right?
It is absolutely a running joke. It's a thing. Has been like everybody told me I needed a shirt that just says it's a thing.
It's a thing. It is a thing.
It's a thing.
Speaking of it's a thing, Eric, you I kind of want to like triangulate the topic of tonight's live stream on where I've landed due to some of the content that you've created with regards to, let me add Zeb back here, with regards to tribal focuses on heathenry, the grassroots level of heathenry, right? So one of the things that has kind of come up in my mind or in my eyes, something that's kind of come across my perception is this idea of tribe/kindred models of heathenry, and maybe versus the hearth aspect of heathenry.
Shouldn't be a versus, but okay. What are you thinking?
Shouldn't be what now?
Shouldn't be a versus, but what are you thinking?
Not a versus, right? But so here's kind of where I'm looking at it, right? Is the kindred, when we call kindred model, right? Does it reflect or does it sort of give a nod to this a bit of a more of a modern Christian structure of a church, right, where everybody is part of this construct of a unit, but doesn't really have any sort of involvement in the unit? So, yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, does heathenry thrive at the tribal level versus does heathenry thrive at the hearth level? And I think where I'm going with this is that hearth is not the same as tribe. Hearth is a very insular thing. Tribe is an extension of the hearth and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, hang on, just
yeah. So yes, it was a comment directed towards Eric because of our history and the development of that sort of construct of things. But I'm open to
I'm
hear.
back. I'm back.
Oh, okay, you're back.
Sorry. So okay, I'm dying. I'm chomping at the bit to jump into this. So okay, we have to establish first context so that we can have this conversation. We have to establish the basis of terms. When we're talking about hearth, you're talking about the family unit. You're talking about the sib. You're talking about the household. It's not necessarily the specific family, but it's your roof tree. Your those that are within your domicile, the most inner circle of the frith yard. So you got the hearth, which is how your people specifically. You've got the hearth, then you've got the clan, and then you've got the tribe. Hearth is this family unit. The clan is the extended families tied to this hearth. So it's the branches of the family, and there are different clans within that clan structure. That's actually the beginning of a more traditional tribe in that respect. So we've got, like for me, I've got my Shervan clan. There's a way that the Shervan clan does things. They're not heathen. That doesn't matter. We still have tribal Thu. We still have clan Thu, because that's what we do as Shervans. When we get together, this is how we celebrate. These are the things we do. It's just the way. It is the way. And then you have the tribe. The tribe is the amalgamation of all of the different hearths that make it up. So you have a hearth culture, and then you have a tribal culture. And the tribe is synergistically greater than the sum of its parts, and yet in the same it's less. It is greater because you have gathered all of these energies into a singular focal point. You've bandied together the luck and weird of all of these different hearths into one central well. It is the great wellspring for the people. They feed into it, it feeds back into them, the reciprocity continues, and they just grow and continue. So we established the basis of terms for hearth, clan, tribe. My whole thing with the whole versus element of things is one cannot exist without the other. Both have to exist. For heathenry to thrive, it must thrive at the hearth level. I used to say that, hearth is where the heathen is. That is where it begins. Heathenry begins at the hearthstead. It begins in the hearth. Whenever people talk to me about, starting a tribe up, I'm like, no. Don't look to start a tribe. Don't look to join a group. Build your hearth cult. Develop your hearth cult. Make your hearth cult strong so that you are confident in who you are. You're confident in your traditions. You're confident in your belief structure. Then bring that to a tribe and show them what you bring to the table. Also, by doing that and being strong in your hearth culture, you're not going to be overrun by the tribal culture that you are stepping into. It's very, very easy for someone who has a weak hearth identity to step in and be overridden by the general, personality of a tribe. Yeah. And then they take on all of the tribal traditions in their hearth, whereas what should be happening is your hearth traditions influence the tribal traditions. Like within Ridgar, we have the Ridgari way, but then each hearth within that tribe has their way. And I try to bring elements of those into the tribal practice so they're all represented. They're all a piece of it. The more involved and the more you bring from the hearths into the tribe, the more you put into the well and the stronger it is. So if the hearth thrives, the tribe thrives. And I'll yield the floor in a second, but your point on the whole kindred as a kind of Christian church cognate, it's actually more the Wiccan circle. That's actually where the kindred model got its original start. It grew out of kind of the Wicca True side of things. And so the basis of its structure is around the and the way that they would do an oath structure is centered on that. It's become its own thing over the years, but that's where it got its start. That's where its original simile point was. So I'll yield the floor
now. Thank you for that. And
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
For all of our listeners who are unfamiliar with hearth cult, can you explain that?
Hearth cult is the practice. You can pretty much take the term cult and replace it with culture. And you'll get kind of the same thing. Hearth cult is the way you do things in your hearth. The belief structure, the traditions, the practices. You know, I can go on for hours, but I've got. Pardon
Would
me,
it be
Jesse.
more
I'm
of
going
like
to hijack for a
individualistic
second.
practice more than a gathering practice?
It is going to be more of, see, old school heathenry, at least back in the day, back in pre-Christian Europe, the smallest indivisible unit was the sib, or the family unit. You didn't do anything as an individual. As an individual, you were a representation of your household. You were so-and-so's son, so-and-so's daughter. Anything that you did reflected upon the gefrain of the household, the reputation of the household, and it influenced the luck of the household. And then it grew from there. You didn't do anything as an island. You were not just a one standalone on anything. And as far as I say culture, I've got 4 main pillars of heathenry. I'll make it the short version, Jesse, I promise. There's the religious, there's the spiritual, there's the cultural, and there's the philosophical. The religious, a lot of people say religion's a bad word. It is not a bad word. Religion is simply the word that we use to describe the codification of our interactions with the divine. Everybody, if you interact with the divine, you are a religious person. You have your religion. Now, most people have an issue with organized religion. Not a thing. All religion is organized because you are placing organization on your interaction with the divine. What you've got is they have issues with the church, or they have issues with big religion. They don't want to be told how to do their religion. So there's the thing. So there's the religious pillar, that's our interaction with the gods and goddesses, sacred space. There's the spiritual, that's our interaction with the spiritual side of things, that which is still part of the profane world. The gods are in the sacred world, dealing with the sacred is religious, dealing with the profane world, but just beside, on the other side of the veil, ancestors, Vatir, all of that, that's your spiritual side. That's where you get your Sidmodr, your all of the your Vitki work, your all of that, all the spiritual work, a lot of the animistic stuff that JM does, I would put into that spiritual side of things. A very, very important part of the entire thing. So you got the religious, you got the spiritual, you got the cultural. That's what we're doing here. That's social interactions, the social construct. That's us going into our interactions between people and building tribe, how Hearth interacts, how different tribes interact with each other, and establishing the social construct that is that. And then, of course, the last is the philosophical. That's our understanding of the world around us. That's our understanding of, we use science, we use philosophy, we use, all of this to understand the gift that the gods gave us in the world. So it's our understanding of luck, weird, and all of those elements that make up the programming language of the world around us. So Hearth cult is all of those 4 elements, how your household does those. How do you do religion in your home? How do you do philosophy in your home? How do you do spirituality? All of that. And I say hearth because it's not necessarily family. An individual is a hearth unto themselves. This is your roof tree. You can be a solo practitioner doing your thing, and what you are doing is not building individual practice. You are building your hearth cult. You are building your hearth culture, the way you do things under your roof tree. And then you can have 10 people in a household, you can have 1. It's all a hearth. It's all how that unit does it. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question?
Thank you very much for answering that. That hit the nail on the head there. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Somebody, or this is an interesting, look up the etymology of religion. It opens up to more than just a belief system. One of the things that I've maintained, whether it's through etymological knowledge or otherwise, is that, religion is a superficial, superstitious, ceremonial observance. Whether you, and if you want to take that the word religion and try to put it into a textbook definition, maybe that fits into a close definition of it. I echo Eric's sentiment, is that religiosity involves our experiences with the divine. Spirituality involves our experience.
Organized ritual.
Say that again.
I would say that religion would be organized ritual. It's an agreed
It
upon
is.
way, or not even to say doctrine, but an agreed upon way of how we go about expressing um, our thanks or reverence or whatever it may be for the divine.
I would agree with that because the key element there is the target. It is the divine. Because ritual is a methodology in which we do our interactions with anything. It's just simply the formalization of a way. So we have spiritual ritual the same way as we have, religious ritual. It's all a codification of the methodology. And then whether it's religious or spiritual is dependent upon the target, about the subject matter. It is the relationship that we're building. Because heathenry is all about relationships. Religion is our relationship with the gods. Spirituality is our relationship with the unseen, profane. Culture is our relationship with each other. And then, philosophy is our relationship with how the world works.
And ritual can even come down to your habits. You get up every morning, you start the day by washing your face, you brush your teeth. That's ritual.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be you put on all kinds of stuff and a mask and light a fire, light some candles, or go out into the woods and look at the
I do
definition of ritual, and you'll find that you perform or occupy in ritual way more than you think you do.
Yep. One of the rituals that I do on a daily basis every day is my offerings on my different altars. Is it a big to do? No. I go and I empty the coffee cups from the day before. I fill the coffee cups for the different entities that I give my offerings to. I set them out. I say, good morning. Thank you. Hope you have a great day. And I move along my way. It's not some big grand thing. It's not some big grand design. It's just a simple little gesture, but I do it repeatedly. I do it the same way. It's the same way a person may put their hammer on in the morning or put their rings on or brush their teeth every day. Brushing your teeth is a ritual that you do.
There's
So
beauty
completely
in
agree,
simplicity.
JM. Oh, yeah.
There really is. It's real, it's raw, it's organic, it's you connecting in that relationship. It's not performative, you're doing it for your relationship.
So why do we collectively feel that this aspect of heathenry is so important? Why do we want to focus so much on the hearth cult aspect of things before we venture off into the tribal aspect of things? Where do we feel that the importance is so focused on with that aspect? Because I've talked about it in various aspects. A lot of people who have come to me and said, well, how do I gift to this god, or how do I sacrifice to this god, or this or that? I have over the years come back to the fact, well, what is your hearth cult? Do you have one? I've talked about this, and I place an importance on this. Can we talk about the why? Why is that so important before we get into the bigger scale tribal? Because when we talk about tribalism, we're talking about involving other people outside of the roof tree, right? We're talking about kith. We're talking about extensions of the family unit. So why is this so important, do you think?
If you skip that foundation in developing hearth cult, you're going to find yourself either mimicking or replicating someone else's for fulfillment, and that's not going to be genuine and honest to you. It might work for a time, but on down the road, you're going to find that, I don't really jive with this. And here you have wasted all this time copying someone else or what works for someone else, only to find out that it's not working for you because you skipped that very important step, that foundation, that fundamental development of who you are, what you believe, what your ideas are, and those people that are under your roof there.
You have to fill your own horn first before you bring it to the feast. Otherwise, all you're doing is draining off of the host's wellspring. You have to build your own sense of self. It's like the old adage, you got to be okay with yourself before you can be in a relationship. You got to be strong in your hearth before you bring something to a tribe. Otherwise, all you're doing is feeding off the tribe to build yourself. And what you create, like James said, isn't genuine. It's not real. It's not organic. All you're doing is cribbing off of somebody else. You're a pale mimic an imitation. So to create something meaningful, you have to tend your own tree. You want to be part of a forest, you need to be a strong tree to come to it.
Absolutely. The
Yeah,
way I
Martin,
look at it this way too is because if I'm not strong in myself, how can I be strong for my people? If I can't take care of my own self, how can I help those around me? Like, what am I? I'm doing them an injustice if I'm feeding, like you said, feeding off of them and their ideas. If I don't have my own ideas, then who am I? What am I? Why am I doing it?
Exactly.
every community is going to be based off of a level of cooperation, whether it be on the hearth level, kindred level, clan level. It's going to be based off of a cooperation in that dynamic, and how all those things come together. You have to be that contributing part. The ones that didn't contribute in community, you would see laid out at the side of the building, asleep in the middle of the day, or very much without.
Yeah, Zeb, you had you know, me and you and JM and Patrick and Ulf here, we've shared in some of these types of things, um, on a sort of one-time experience level, right? Fire on the Mountain. We talked about this or alluded to this earlier, but Zeb, specifically, I want to kind of direct the next comment to you, sir. Is you were an influential part of ritual with Fire on the Mountain. There were aspects of that retreat that you were a pivotal leader of. um so when it comes to things like we're talking about with hearth cult ritual and this and that, um how much of your hearth cult influenced the part of the group ceremony that you were part of leading for you?
I mean, obviously I was invested all in. Um, you know, you and myself, we have a bond. Um, very grateful for JM in my life. That built the bond, which then I was able to build the bond with these other gentlemen there. But yeah, I mean, it was, you know, that was straight from my spirit, straight from my soul, to be able to perform, to be able to guide, be able to lead us when I needed to be able to assist JM during these moments. But for me, man, it was definitely us bonding together and being able to share these moments, that I can genuinely say that I could not share with just anybody. Knowing how much I trust you and JM, and then getting to meet Wolf and Patrick in person, and knowing that they had came with you, was able to open that up for me, and to be able to trust them as well, to be able to give you all that experience, and as well as being able to experience it back. But yeah, it was exactly. Yeah, it's just a whole whole beautiful moment from the whole entire thing, because again, it is for me, it was having your hearth is also having your trust, right? Being able to know that I could trust that you gentlemen would welcome it and trust me, and JM trust me to be able to help perform with him at that. That to me was the importance, to be able to do that.
Yeah, we talk about trust. Eric mentioned earlier, Yafrain, and which for people watching now that maybe may not know what that term means. Yafrain is reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Reputation is built. Reputation is maintained by our deeds. It is cultivated through our actions. So it's not so much of what we say, rather than it is what we do. So
Right.
the deeds, the
Huh.
actions that we execute, are what kind of establish that. It establishes that reputation. I like to think of Gefrain as a sort of social credit score. And you know, so it's like
Good way to put it.
it's what everybody else kind of sees you as, and when you're in a position of representing yourself on any sort of social media platform, one is faced with this idea of, well, how much of my Gefrain is maintained and kept or even damaged through this social media presence. And I don't know. I've faced a bit of a struggle with that over the years, 6 years now, of Midgard Musings, is how much of what I post or share through my social media platforms, what is that doing to kind of feed into my Gefrain? Is it doing anything? Is it doing anything of a good respect, like respectively speaking, right? Good and evil, how much is it doing good? How much is it doing bad from a respective
Harming
nature?
or helping. Yeah.
Harming or helping. Yeah.
Right. And then I guess to your question, and how much of yourself are you allowing to be out there?
Yeah.
How much do you want your followers to really truly know about you? Because I also deal with that. I stay pretty active on social media, sharing my work. But I am a very career driven individual, that outside of what social media sees has no clue what I do for a living. Because you would never know. I will never share it. I'll never put it out there. You have to actually know me to know what I do for a living. I only allow you or the followers to see, certain sides of me. I don't want to give all of my energy as well out there, because some of that energy goes back to the word trust. And I only want to be able to give that part of energy to people I truly trust.
We have a great example, coming back just a second, on how hard cult comes into a broader community, and your question directed to Zeb. In Zeb's Hearth Cult, there's hunting. He hunts every season, and there's a long-standing tradition in harvesting organ meats from an animal that you've taken. On one particular evening, there was a raw liver that was presented to the group.
I remember that.
To Zeb, this is no thing. I took a piece, and Zeb cuts this big sloppy slice of raw liver.
The look on his face,
dude, that was something.
And
That
these
was
other guys are
questionable.
standing around like, wow. And so these things are all so interconnected. That gave you renown. These other men around you were impressed. Your reputation was lifted in their opinion of you. But that's how your heart cult came into a bigger group dynamic, and how you have an impact there. And that interconnection of all those things.
I do appreciate that. And, I think I've shared in with you about hunting for me. It's very sacred. I'm not a trophy hunter. That is not a thing for me. I take only what I need that can provide for myself, my family. And I will utilize every bit of it. And I am no stranger to eating liver. But that particular liver we had is a different story.
That was a whole different story. Yeah.
That was and I did, and there's no lie. I took a very healthy chunk because I was like, oh hell yeah, liver, let's go. And immediately it went in my mouth, and I started chewing, and we're looking at each other. And it's like, and Jesse's over there like, I don't know if I want to do this. And of course Patrick Dolph was like, yeah, hell no, man, we're watching y'all's faces.
No, we're good. Pass.
Liver as it is.
The
You're
look
not
of
gonna let
abject
me-
horror.
I was
But
impressed.
hey, man, I got it down. Did not eat any more of it, but I was like, you
I'll
know
tell
what?
you
I'm
this.
dedicated, and I'm in it. Let's go.
Right.
I'll
Damn
tell you
right.
this right now.
About 3 seconds in, I stopped chewing and just swallowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My piece was too big. Okay, I had to chew. There was no just swallowing it, man. You would have been having to help me because I would have been choking on it.
I'll say this right now, just so that way it's documented. Should the opportunity present itself next time, I will take that piece of meat.
I will
That piece of
too.
liver. A
We're
piece of horse
actually
liver.
looking
Even.
at horse liver this year.
Put the
Horse
words into my mouth, JM. Why don't you? 'Cause I said a piece of horse liver. I'm thinking of that. It's a literary work. Eric, maybe you can help me. The author, a piece of horse liver. Who wrote that?
I've got the book upstairs.
JM, you probably got it too.
Yeah, I've got the book
There's
upstairs. but I
several
can't-
people here that know what I'm talking about.
Google
But
for
yeah, a
it's,
piece of horse liver.
it's basically a recount of ritual and ceremony in the Norse realm.
Yeah, it's a
that's
well
what
the
we're
well
looking at this
reputed
year. We're gonna get a
well
big
reputed piece of
Yep. I
literature.
can just never remember the author off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's super familiar, but I'm like,
It is
bleh.
Jan Neffel Adelsteinsson. Piece of
Say it
horse
again?
liver. Jan Neffel Adelsteinsson.
Yeah, what he said.
that guy.
Nice. I'll drink to that.
Ja, sure. Ja,
Um,
sure.
So a piece of horse liver, myth, ritual, and folklore
Elf, yes. I have a whole video on
in
that.
old
Follow
Icelandic
it.
sources. Yeah, Jon Hilfier. Yeah, there he goes.
Jon Neffel.
He'll give you a little bit better
Adelsteinsson.
information than Snorri did.
Exactly.
That doesn't take much.
We're doing it, folks. We're putting it out there. Bada bing, bada boom. There it is.
Wunderbar.
Jon Hilfier Arfa. Yeah, there you go. The Eric did it.
Jan Neffel Adelsteinsson.
There he is. I credit your Norwegian ancestry for the pronunciation of it there, sir.
Ja, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Ja, sure. Just det.
All right, so there's that. It's a piece of horse liver, myth, ritual, and folklore in Old Icelandic source. It is available on Amazon. And there's your it was a 1998 release by that person. So, real quick, Elf on YouTube.
That's not a quick answer.
Wow. Quick
I
as a
did an
relative
entire
term.
45-minute video on that.
Please do. Please get your
No,
ass
I
back
already
on YouTube and do it.
I will. I had to get through some life stuff first. But yeah, no.
So
I'm
Elf
getting there.
says, would you say that Norse creation stories and how it can quote unquote relate? Would you say the Norse creation story and how it can relate, or how it was the Norse way
I
of
can
viewing,
relate, or
quote,
it was
Big
the
Bang?
Norse way.
Yeah, or was it also fall under philosophical? Eric, you're the philosopher here. You've got the bit of a higher education in philosophy when it comes to, or psychology, I guess it'd probably be the better. Yeah, philosophy. But yeah, do you want to take that?
Sure. Absolutely. The story of the Gununga Gap is a perfect correlate to the Big Bang. I use it all the time. It's one of the things. Oh, cool. Sweden and Norwegian. Very cool. It's one of those things that I do. I've done some videos on, but my big thing about how heathenry jives with science and how the two are not separate. A lot of old stories were just how we explained understanding the world, just the same as science is how we explain it now. It's an understanding of the formation of things. If you look at the story of Ginnungagap, and you go back, it's the yawing void. There was nothing, and then you had the cold, formless matter of Niflheim that enters into the void. You have the active energy of the fires of Muspelheim that come together, and when matter and energy meet, there is the explosion that creates being. It is the active force. At that point, energy is gifted to matter, and things become. It's where we can get Ymir. That's where we can get Bor Buri. We can get into, when Odin Lilienve slew Ymir in the first great sacrifice. I mean, all of it builds up to itself, but it all starts with that initial point where fire met ice, where the raw matter met energy, and the whole system kicked off. So yeah, absolutely. I would say that it relates. It is I put that into the realm of heathen philosophy, simply because it's understanding how our lore relates to how the world works. And there's a ton of it in the lore, going back and looking at, the sun and moon, looking at eclipses with Skadi and Hati, devouring the sun and moon at times, and then, belching them back up to give us back the light. There's a lot of correlates. Some would even say you could look at the course of like the transatlantic current, and see that, it looks like a giant serpent eating its own tail, kind of Ouroboros style. And for, a metaphorical correlate works well with Jormungandr. Oversimplification, just simply looking at some, correlations to mythical elements that we see and can relate to in the world around us. Now, there's a lot of confirmation bias that comes with it too, because all of this information we are viewing as modern heathens in the modern setting with our understanding of the world around us. So we're going to look for and have confirmation bias on certain things, such as that, correlation between Jormungandr and the Atlantic Current. That's something that they wouldn't have known about back then. It would have been a different kind of view, but it's a deeper element of correlation that we can make because we have learned more. We have gained more knowledge. We have spent time on the tree as a society, as a people, and have gained more wisdom that, we share and has been passed down generation to generation. So each generation we grow deeper in that. So yes, the answer is, I do believe that, that would be in the realm of philosophy. It does relate to the Big Bang, specifically that story. And there's a longer version of it if you want to go to the YouTube channel or however I point at it and check it out.
Yeah, check out Eric's channel, which is, it's fascinating to dive into that aspect of things, Eric, or anyone else, because every culture has a creation myth. So if the Hridgari, which Eric is closely connected with for obvious reasons, has a perception, a perception or view of the world, right, in its creation, versus any other tribe or collective of people who might have a more and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but like does Hidgari kind of maintain or perpetuate a more Scandinavian Icelandic model?
Currently, yes. I said before we started, it was kind of an amalgamation between Anglo-Saxon and Icelandic Norse.
Right.
With Mike's leaving, it went very hard Norse Icelandic bent, simply because the remaining members were of that Norse Icelandic aesthetic and approach to things. But you touched on something that is extremely important, and that is the ideal of tribal mythos. Yes, there is the mythology that's passed down, but it's kind of like tribe cult versus hearth cult. There's the overarching mythology that we have, but each individual family unit, each individual tribe had their own mythology. They had their own belief structure. That's how we get all of these stories. There were pieces of folklore. They were pieces of individual tribal belief structure that ended up becoming zeitgeist and making it into the big list. But you see references to it in things like the Heimskringla and in the, Prozetta and whatnot. Specifically the Heimskringla, there was a, one of the kings that would in battle call upon his family gods to turn the tide and throw hail and ice at his opponents. It's the, you know, their particular family worshipped a specific set of gods that may have been tied to the family line, maybe a deified ancestor or something of that lines. Not sure exactly, but it shows that there wasn't just one overarching belief structure. There wasn't just one overarching mythos, even. So even though we've got the versions of the stories that were passed down and made it into, you know, the poetic Edda, prose Edda, things like that, there's so much that we lost because they were family stories. They're family belief structures. This is why hearth cult, tribal cult are so important. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I was leaning towards with my comment with Hridgari leaning into the like Norse Icelandic model, you know, we have to look at, or we have to at least consider where those stories come from. They come from a continental Germanic worldview, right? The stories, the mythos, everything in Scandinavia evolved from a continental southern Germanic area. You know, if you want to go way back, you know,
Proto-Indo-European.
Yeah, Twistos and Manos and those Indo-European roots of things. They started, but every culture has a creation myth, you know, and they started from from somewhere, and they evolved and they grew and they became something based upon the views of the culture of the people at the time. What's interesting to consider, right, is that we are modern heathens in, and everybody here, at least on this panel, we are modern heathens in the North American continent. And how much of what we perceive, how much of what we view, how much of what we look upon is drawn from a European modality, a European view of things that fit the culture, that fit the society at the time that it was constructed. Right? How much of those things are we gleaning upon?
This is some.
So how do we fit that into our modern heathen life and our modern heathen existence in the North American continent, in our literal space and time that we exist in? Do the Vatir, do the gods, do the Kolf gods, do the everything that existed for the Scandinavian people in the Northern European areas, whether it was Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, etc., or the southern continent of the Germanic countries, how much of that can we carry over into our North American modality of heathenry? And do we have to accept and sort of realize that we are living in space and time of literal Vatir, literal spirits that are part of this continent that we live in, and we're sort of formulating our worldviews around that ancient existence. You know what I'm trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if I'm making.
I'm chomping at the bit over here. I'm just trying to be good.
Yeah, I'm going to shut up now. So go ahead.
Oh, you're good. All right. This is something that actually is a big thing for Ridgard. We stopped, you know, we say that we're kind of based on a Norse Icelandic aesthetic because that's some of the imagery that we use, but our belief structure is 100% Ridgari. It is built on our understanding of the world around us. When I use the term Vatir, I'm speaking about localized spirits, localized land spirits. So, you know, we don't do the Yule lads. We don't do a lot of the regionally specific things to Norway, Sweden, Iceland, all of that, because that's there. Somebody once in one of my videos asked me, you know, are the Fae folk are the different courts, or the Shi, are they Vatir? And I said, well, the answer to that question in and of itself is yes, they are Vatir in that they are spirits, but they are specific to their region. Do I believe that their courts are over here? No, I think that there are their own courts over here. I think if you want to understand the Vatir of this land, that you need to be cognizant of the practices of Native Americans and what they practice, but even more so, you need to make your own observations of the world around us. Mike and I used to hunt in the bottoms down there in Tennessee Colony, and we ran into a couple of the manifestations of some of the bigger, badder Vatir down there. One of them we called Bob, the beast of the bottoms. This giant hog. You haven't met Mike, but his hand is like 3 times the size of mine. Dude's a massive Jotun-blooded bastard, and he's incredible.
He's called Squatch for a reason.
He's called Squatch for a reason. And he was able to put his hand entirely into this footprint, and there was space all the way around it. I probably could have put my foot off in that thing. It was ridiculous. So we base a lot of our traditions and our practices on the Vatir of the area that we are in. We don't pull a lot of the spiritual practices from the Norse Icelandic or even the Germanic side of things, simply because we'll pull some of like the methodology of interaction as a starting point, and then we will hone it into our own practices. So the Rithgari way is the Rithgari way. It is, I don't think anybody else does it the way we do it, and that's part of the reason I don't share the Rithgari way online. I'll talk philosophy, I'll talk, basic, higher level heathen stuff. I'll talk some deeper level heathen stuff online too, but I don't share the way of our people online, other than a few tidbits here and there as examples. But like the deeper parts of our belief structure are our own, and it stays that way for a very specific reason. But absolutely, I used to say, okay, Sasquatch is Vatir. It's just he's a North American Vatir. Versus, the Huldra folk over there in Northern Europe. Same kind of thing. Just
it's folklore.
Places. Yeah. Brownies, Huldra, Skogra, the Fey folk, Chupacabra. Chupacabra is a freaking...
It's a Fey folk. Yeah.
Fey folk over here. It's just our version. It's the Vatir of...
You can put a name to
area.
it. Yeah, you can put a name to it based off of your, etymological or linguistic side of things,
right.
But and JM, I'm sure this is hitting on some stuff
It's all in his wheelhouse.
Yeah,
absolutely. Eric is absolutely right, and that there are very regionally specific beliefs and entities and spirit. But when you go back far enough, really the only separation is our language. What you may call Vatir, I'll call spirit or thunder being. So we're talking about the same things, but we think we're talking about completely different things because we say them in a completely different way. The only real barrier is language. We're still finding common ground. We're still having that conversation, but we're feeling out of sorts or not connected because we're so hard on that, well, I call it this, you call it that type thing.
Yeah, kind of getting lost in the semantics.
It's the basis of blue. We have the color blue, and we have a word for it. Spanish has a word for it. Norwegian has a word for it. Everything has a word for the color blue and the way that it exists and that which we perceive. We look up at the sky, we say a word, and that's the word that we use to describe this thing. Looking at the linguistic element of things, the more value you put on it, the more words you have to describe it, the more granular your understanding of the thing. Nonetheless, we're all talking about the color that the sky is. We just call it something else. That's why I use the term Vatir as aesthetic. We all know that we're talking about spirits. We're talking about, and I've got a whole thing about hierarchy within, like whites. I've got a whole thing about hierarchy with the Vatir. But that's a thing for another day. But no, you're absolutely spot on. We call them different things. They're all spirits, and it's just like the people. We're all people, we're all humans, But there's a distinct difference between the humans in Texas and the humans in Germany, or the humans in Madagascar, or the humans in Chile, or the humans in Maine. There's differences with East Texas and South Texas and North Texas.
Yeah, that's like
Dude,
hearth cult
I've been
on a
all over
global
Texas.
level.
I already know.
Each of these communities are their hearth cult in terms of the world or on a global scale. You have your customs, you have your culture, you have your heritage, your practices, your beliefs, your philosophy, those pillars that Eric mentioned. And they're unique to the people of a certain region.
Warbor Workshop, Cliff, says
Cliff.
that we have Pukawugi in Indiana, little people that are mostly good.
I love that.
So they're part of the Vatir construct of what we would label them as. Voodoo Viking had an interesting comment that I was going to post up here. What would you say is the correlation between mental issues and actual gifts from God? Meaning, are they symptoms / signs of certain paths people are meant for, yet they ignore the signs? This is a really interesting topic.
Establish first that there are real mental diseases. There are real chemical imbalances that occur in human beings just the same as if you were to get any other virus or bacteria that causes seriously damaging things. So I would be careful throwing those two together between mental illness and some sort of gift of the gods, whether it be oracle or divination. So, yeah.
Psychology is my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I was just about Eric. You're over here just like putting your hands together, being like, "I'm waiting." Yeah,
I'm being good. I'm chomping at the bit, but I'm being good. No, I do not correlate vast majority of mental issues as being somebody who's like missing their calling, as it were. Can it happen? Sure. I mean, yeah, you can absolutely go that route. Is it real common? No. Vast majority of the time, it's not. Simply because, take a look at somebody who is born left-handed but learns to write left-handed because they were smacked on the hand and told they couldn't do that. Can you sublimate an aspect of yourself and then it builds up as pressure and comes out in some kind of maladaptive way over time? Absolutely. We do it all the time. However, a vast majority of mental illness is clearly traceable to specific physiological or psychological phenomena that are, it does a disservice to dilute the source of that. Now, I do go into a spiritual aspect of mental illness in my particular viewpoint. Keep in mind, this doesn't even necessarily reflect the viewpoint of the rest of the Rithgari. This is just Eric talking from his own observations over time. I ascribe to a soul complex view of the soul. There's multiple aspects of the soul. There's mind, the hugger, there's the lich, which is the actual body. There's multiple elements. Yeah, you get into all of that. Multiple parts, wildly complex. And my view of the soul complex actually influences a great deal of my understanding of heathenry and my viewpoints of things like afterlife and things like that. UPG warning. UPG warning. This is just my personal views from experience and from looking at things. If you're going to look for a spiritual or religious cognate or correlation with mental health issues, it's more likely that it is a illness of the soul that is manifesting through the lich. It's more likely there's an imbalance in some kind of soul element that is manifesting through behavioral elements or through some physiological means. There's issues of different elements within the mental aspects that may be out of whack, that may manifest in a form of autism, that may manifest in a form of schizophrenia and things like that. However, all of those things, majority of those things, are to a certain extent manageable, can be dealt with specific treatments. Not all of them are pharmacological. Ones that deal specifically with the lich, pharmacology helps a great deal, both in naturopathy and in well-honed pharmaceuticals now.
Real quick, Eric.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So when you say the lich, just for the
The
sake
body.
of the viewers watching, right? The physical body, right?
The physical body, yeah, the physical body that houses the other soul elements, and is our presence on the material plane, as it were. And I've got entire videos. I got like a 4-part series on the soul complex. If you're interested in that,
Yeah,
go look
he
at
does.
that. But,
Yeah.
the elements being out of whack or being disconnected are how we get some of those elements of mental illness, but a vast majority are like the lich being out of whack, something not being right in the lich, in the body, in
It's
the mind, because the mind is
presence
part of that.
holistic health and holistic medicine is that all those parts, all those systems are connected.
Exactly. When you're dealing with like the soul complex, because the lich is part of the soul complex. It's not a dualistic point of view of the soul and the body. The soul is one of those pieces of the soul complex. The whole thing works together, and if something's out of whack in the engine's not going to run right. So can there be soul element, spiritual element influences on mental health issues? Absolutely. 100%. My belief structure is that there is an element of that. In order to treat the mental illness, you need to address the mind, the different soul elements, because the mind is part of the soul elements, but the brain is part of the lich. There's a subtle difference there between the mind and the brain, because your mind can be fine, but your brain can be jacking with you. If it's an issue with the lich, you treat it through things that interact with the lich. You treat it with medications. You deal with corrective shock. You deal with different physiological interactions. You deal with herbs. You deal with teas. You deal with all of these things that can influence the lich. Different things work better. A lot of people are afraid of pharmaceuticals because of big pharma. Are there issues? Sure. But a lot of medication, all it simply is the advanced form of the apothecary. It is those holistic herbs and things that were boiled down to more effective means. Some of them are dirty, sure. Some of them are not great. They're money grabs and they're twists on a formula just to keep the brand name on it as opposed to going generic. That's a whole thing. The only way you can get around that is through self-education and finding the right doctor that is after the right thing. But talk therapy deals with the mind, not the brain. It deals with soul elements. So you've got anybody that's in the field will tell you that if you're dealing with somebody who's like dealing with depression, for example, which is something I deal with myself on a dear level, you can't just treat the chemical. You can't just treat the behavioral. You can't just treat the therapeutic. You need to work all of those together in unison, a holistic approach in order to get somewhere. So,
Brain and the mind is why you have psychiatrist versus psychologist.
Bingo.
Exactly right.
Bingo.
What
A
the hell?
psychologist is a
Yeah.
crafter in the mindscape. A psychiatrist is a crafter in the brainscape. Two different things.
And for anybody that doesn't believe or is having trouble understanding that those things are connected, it's not just a woo-woo belief that these things are connected. It's medical.
No.
For example, if I were to become depressed and overeat to treat myself, then my physical suffers for it. I become overwhelmed. If I am overweight, it's going to keep me from going outside. And so then my mental health is going to suffer because I'm not getting out doing what I used to love to do anymore.
Yep.
These things are really connected. It's not just we want to make it up to talk about it so that we can sound like we're talking about something.
Case in point, talking about depression. You can have an emptiness in the soul that is a yawing void that you need to pour something into because there's some soul element of yourself that you're not feeding and you're not taking care of, or that is out of whack. That's just not right. It then influences the brain. It influences the mind. You build habits that perpetuate this negative brainscape. The brain is affected by reducing serotonin levels in the brain, norepinephrine, and then that we get into we use SSRIs to treat and to balance out the brain chemistry. We use therapy to help break habitual practices that perpetuate that modality, that mentality. And once you got those things in place and you're you can set the stage with the lich and the brain and the mind all to the point that then you can try to work on filling that soul element. But if you try to fill the soul element while all of the chemical things are out of balance, you're not going to get anywhere with it. So sometimes you have to treat the symptomology to get to the root. Sometimes you have to treat the root hardcore so that you can then mold some of those symptoms. It's all connected, and it's all a thing. And if you talk to any doctors that deal with like chaplains and whatnot in the hospital, they will tell you that a person's religious belief, a person's spiritual belief, can play an immense role in their healing process. There is a reason that all your 12-step programs and things like that are built with a religious element to them or a spiritual element to them. There's a reason that chaplains are allowed into even secular hospitals. It's because that's an element. That's a thing. The placebo effect is a thing. We have this well documented in psychology. You can convince the brain that a sugar pill is an analgesic, that it will treat your pain, and it'll do it because the brain is so convinced that this is what it's supposed to do that it will make up the difference chemically to bring that about. The placebo effect is incredibly strong and a perfect example of the strength of the spirit influence, the mind influence on the lich itself.
Yeah, I see like there's like a separation between the brain, the mind, and the heart, right? What we think versus what we feel. You know, like
Well, the brain is going to give you
It's a
logic.
terminology
The
thing.
heart is going to give you emotion.
right. Like, but the sense that there's a separation between the two, but how they work intrinsically together.
Sort of.
Sort of. Right.
Sort of.
Yeah.
The mind deals with thought and emotion. What we call the heart, like we use the heart as a terminology to describe the emotional element of things. The physiological side of that is you're dealing with limbic system, you're dealing with prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, what I
things like
feel versus what I
exactly. You're dealing with different elements of the brain, and the name that we have given to that set of sensations and perceptions is the heart. But the brain deals with neurochemistry. The brain deals with neurons, dendrites, axons. It deals with misfires. You can be all here. Everything can be fine in the mind. But if something's askew with the brain, Broca's aphasia, the inability to speak. Is it Broca's or Wernicke's? Anyway, there's two different types of aphasias. There's Broca's and there's Wernicke's. One affects the expressive speech. The other is receptive. So you can hear words, but you can't understand them. The other is there's plenty of words up here. They just won't come out because my brain won't tell my mouth what to do. There's other types of aphasias that, everything's fine up here, but there's some breakdown in the lines, so the signals aren't getting where they're supposed to be. Look at paraplegics, people that have had spinal damage, people that have had brainstem damage. They have lost
people
use
who
of
are
the body.
nonverbal that
Still feel
can express their emotions, but that are nonverbal.
Mm-hmm. If you look at somebody who lost a modality, whether it be speech, sight, hearing, whatever, those things are still there. The connection to that input-output modality is gone. And the brain, due to plasticity, can be retaught how to work around it. Under specific circumstances, depending on the severity of damage and things like that, the brain can be rewired. A lot of the work from the Christopher Reeves Foundation showed that there is actually regrowth in neural tissue. It's a myth that neurons don't regrow. Superman proved that it is a thing. It does actually happen. It's just extremely slow. It's extremely slow. But the plasticity of the brain, neuroplasticity, means that you can reprogram different parts of the brain to fill a role that they did not previously do.
And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, the last point was that the mind can be intact, the brain can be jacked up. The mind is still there, so you still feel, you still think, you still have all the logic, you have all of the emotion, but it just can't talk to the lich anymore. Anyway, go ahead.
And how much of what exists in plant medicine can repair those damages? I'm talking about things like psilocybin and things of those things of that nature that can be aided to repair that damage. What are your thoughts on that, Eric? From a psychological, from a psychoactive
from
aspect?
a neurological standpoint, they don't really have a direct effect on the rebuilding of those specific neurons, at least not in the like neurochemistry that I've seen, unless there's been some new research I haven't come across. However, they can be facilitatory in the rerouting aspect, in kind of activating different parts of the brain and allowing it to learn a different pathway. So I missed that one in the comment. See? Case in point,
so
PECS.
the PECS. This is probably in your wheelhouse, right?
Yep. Is a system that let us teach our nonverbal daughter how to wire up her brain for language, so eventually she did become verbal. Exactly that. You can train the brain. Now, it's more difficult as you get older because you are working with fewer dendrites. Unused dendritic connections die down over time. So that's why you see a lot of people are kind of set in their ways. It's tough to teach an old dog new tricks kind of stuff. That's because a lot of one, you're not creating new dendrites. You've pretty much got the peak dendritic development by 25. After that, things kind of start to settle, ferment, and then eventually kind of cull. And then there's also neurological damage that we do to ourselves throughout those times that have a cumulative effect. But it still can be done. Children can do it extremely fast, which is why you see more success in younger entities. But it's just like somebody who's had spinal damage and has lost the use of their legs, but through physical therapy, they're able to relearn how to walk, to relearn how to talk. Stroke victims, how many have lost their ability to speak, but then were able to gain it back over time because through practice and just sheer willpower, they taught a different part of their brain how to kick that over. Yes, I do think that holistic medicine for our ancestors was tied heavily to both a deep understanding of,
Right.
Spiritual interaction, physiological interaction through experimentation because it was the science at the time. And I do think there was a placebo effect because belief
The
is hella
science at
strong.
the time, right?
It's the science
And
of the time, exactly.
And that's why I look at the benefits of such things as plant medicine, which kind of segues into what I wanted to talk on this particular live stream about, or at least mention, was
Keep
that I
hijacking
had
your stuff. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Like you're contributing exponentially to things on this topic, and it's a beautiful segue into what I wanted to talk about, particularly on this topic. Was that I had a dream last week with which involved JM and Zeb, which I mean, dreams can when we have them, as we have them, be particularly influential when we're talking to certain people. But I had a dream this past week with JM and Zeb in it, and it was the most unhinged dream that I've had in a while, because it was like I remember going to sleep and turning on music, because like quite oftentimes I'll put like a playlist on, you know what I mean, like a Spotify playlist or whatever, and I'll put music on and I'll like, it just helps me sleep. But in my dreamscape, in that moment of an unconscious vision of things, Zeb and JM were there. But it was like, I remember they were there, and I was looking at like a dial pad of a phone, which, if you want picture, like just an old school dial pad,
Nokia
like 1,
phone,
2,
like
3,
this.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, right?
Uh,
Those numbers, everything that was on that dial pad was changing so rapidly. There was no, and it wasn't even the numbers that were changing. It was like, if you remember how the old dial pads worked, it was like one was ABC and two was DEF and et cetera, right? Everything about those dial pads were changing rapidly to the point that I couldn't maintain a cohesive understanding of what I was looking at. But they were there, like JM and Zeb were there. And what is interesting from my perspective on this whole conversation about the mind, the lich, the connection, and all of that was that I was in a subconscious state. I was in a sleep state. There was nothing that I could like consciously control about the progression of the vision. I was also not in a quote unquote conscious state under any sort of like altered state of consciousness. Like I wasn't under any sort of substance, right? Whether it was alcohol, herb, plant medicine, anything like that that could alter my state. I was just asleep. And there were various things about this dream that changed rapidly. One of the things was the dial pad of this analog sort of phone that I was looking at. And it was changing so rapidly. Like the 1 was a 9 and the 8 was a 3. And there was no like construct or like I couldn't come back into a conscious state of awareness. Like I couldn't awake from my dream and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It was just so rapid and so random. I also have been wearing my like necklace that Zeb made for me that my wife commissioned. And it was such a random experience of existence in that dreamscape. It was like, because I've gone on altered states of consciousness journeys through plant medicine that gave me this I'm not here but I'm here sort of awareness. This dream was like that but without the plant medicine insertion. You know what I mean? And so I awoke from that dream and I'm like, what does that even mean? And I couldn't come to a conclusion of the quote unquote meaning of that dream because there was no meaning. It was so random and it was so ambiguous in its existence through my subconscious that I was like, well, I'm in a place. Like at one point in the dream, I was in a place that I recognize as familiar. Like I was at a place that I've been before, and then immediately, almost in the blink of an eye, sort of timescape awareness, like I blinked and I was in a different space. Like I'm in a different space. I don't know where I'm at. I think I'm in Zeb's front yard or I'm in JM's front yard or whatever. It was all random in its construct, but it touched on those two individuals, and it was like a learning experience, like I'm connected to these these two guys. Like I'm connected to them in the ways that I've been connected to them, but the moment that I'm experiencing this in my subconscious was outside of the moments that I've ever experienced, their two experiences together. It was bizarre. I gotta say, it was bizarre. It was outside of anything that I've ever experienced before. It was not something that I could like put a finger on. So this subconscious, this like awareness of the self, the connection to the self, part of the self. What part of that self is it connecting to?
I
Not
would
the
love
lit.
to touch on this and give my personal interpretation. After this segment, I will have to bow out, though. I still have one more drum that I have to string tonight, and it's
Yeah.
way past my bedtime.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here soon too. Anyway,
I was
Usually
gonna say be
rise and
hopping off
set
here in a
with the
couple.
sun, and the sun has been down for a while now.
I also have to make some orders for our next
First and
weekend.
foremost,
I'm
Yeah.
about to hop
Sounds like
off here in
everybody's
a
about to have to
second.
tap out.
I
I
won't
gotta
be
hop
far
off.
behind. I've been up way too damn long.
we're gonna wrap it up.
Like 2.5 hours.
We're gonna wrap it up.
I'm very
I'm-
disappointed. Of all the experiences, of all the times that the three of us have shared, we've been in a sauna together, we've been in a hot tub together, we've been in the skivvies, dipping in the cold water together. Of all the dreams that you could have had that involved Zeb and myself, all you could see was a dial-up pad.
No,
I was thinking, I was going to ask you, I was like, which one of us was naked?
You've seen
Oh,
me
it was
naked.
you, Zeb, 100%.
It's in your brain somewhere. No, I think it really goes back to kind of what you opened up the show with on those talks on trust. Of course, a lot of our dreams are mumbo jumbo, just stuff that's filtering itself through in our subconscious. But I do believe that there are some dreams that have meaning. And if you were thinking about either of us that evening, or if you had recently received that necklace and that conjured thoughts about the brotherhood and brothership and the love and the connection, you may have just had that on your mind as you went to sleep that night. Or maybe a bit of the music took you back to a place that made you think about one of the two of us or both, and your connection and that trust. And so we were there in a time of confusion when you didn't know who to call. You couldn't call anybody, but we were there still in the dream.
And I will add to this as well, not putting my personal business, but obviously things in my life have recently changed. And oddly enough, you two reached out to me on the same day, to see how I was doing and what was going on, basically. And I sat back and I thought about that too. It wasn't a dream; that was reality. But for me, it was our connection. I haven't reached out for anybody, but you guys took the notion to reach out to me, and I valued that a lot, and that meant a lot to me. And maybe your dream, like he was saying, was we're always there for each other, and that was the reality. Get out of the dream world. You reach to me, and maybe that some of that was a telltale sign to say, hey.
yeah, who knows, right? I mean, that was my dream, and that was my
The spirit
dreamscape.
coming
And
into your
so,
dream, guiding you, your thought towards Zeb to reach out, and that made an impact in his life. It's how spirit
Absolutely.
guides us in those small
it
little
was
liminal ways.
nuts. It was absolutely nuts. I did want to mention it on the live stream because I said I would, but in reflection of it, I'm like, this sounds like a bunch of hockey bullshit.
The dial pads got me though.
No, but that's the thing that stood out to me. I'm like, I was looking at something and everything was just like, what you see doesn't mean what you think.
Right.
You think you're seeing 1s and 2s and 3s, but what you're actually seeing is blobbity blobbity blah. Like it was a nut. Again, it was a very it was nuts.
They're like,
You
you
know?
don't need to call for help. You have help on hand.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't know what number to dial because the numbers don't mean fucking shit. Like
There you go. There you go.
you know? Like,
The only numbers that mean anything are ones and zeros. Everything's made of ones and zeros. A lot of people will be mad at me for saying that, but you look at code and technology and things. We'll go that route.
well, yeah, it's ones and zeros, but it's that whole like Eric, you know, right? You're the psychology, you're you're into the psyche, right? Terrence McKenna, Adam Watts, like these guys, these folks that have expanded and expounded upon the psyche of the self. I'm sure you have done your due diligence of study when it comes to these types of things. You know, it goes into stuff that's beyond even heathenry. You know what I mean? It's personal and it's introspective and it's very
There's a reason that
individualistic.
I didn't jump in on trying to interpret your dream. When you're dealing with something like that, those gentlemen can chime in because they had a connection and they get it.
Because they were there, right?
Dreams are of the mind. Dreams are of the spirit. Dreams are of the soul. They ride the web of weird. They are influenced by so many things, both within and without. They are energies both of the body and of the soul that are interplaying, that are dancing out, that are trying to make some sense of themselves. Sometimes there's a message for you to learn. Sometimes it's simply your brain making sense of the random neuro firing that's going on. And it's nothing more than just random imagery. Sometimes what you're seeing is prophetic. It's the ripples of the web. It's the influence of weird on the soul of the mind. But only you can know that. That's the trick. Those that know you can see patterns because they share frith with you. They've melded weird with you. They can see your pattern. They see your experiences. They see what you've been through, and they can understand that. There's a reason that I don't do rune readings for a lot of people, and I never do rune readings for strangers. I only do them for, if I do a rune reading for someone, it's a mark of friendship. It's a mark of trust. And it is very, very seldom that I ever do it, simply because to read someone's web is to touch it. It's to experience it, and you influence it. You're casting a stone into the river, and the river is touching you. And so it's
become responsible for that interpretation, that message.
You do. It's an action. It's an active action.
Everybody weaves their own web, and there are various webs that we weave, but how our webs intertwine with one another becomes a thing.
It's the same reason that I don't do ritual at open gatherings, the same reason that I don't film any of my rituals. I refuse to, simply because ritual is of the inner, and a video camera is a window to the outer. And if I am building a protective barrier around my well for my ritual, it's going to get into some of the imagery that we use specifically for our stuff. But if I am trying to protect my well, and I have built the wall around it to hold the waters that are the energies of the divine and our interactions thereof, to create a window through a camera is to poke a hole in it.
Yeah.
It is to invite unseen within. What's that?
I love that you mentioned about things being personal, especially dreams. A lot of people asking about, I saw a sign. What does it mean? You know what that means. I could see a cardinal. It means something to me. You see a cardinal. That message is for you. That's personal.
Yep.
I can help you figure that out, but I can't tell you what that is.
Yep.
Right.
So
Yeah,
your dream
that's
is your dream, Jesse. Only you can know what that really is. We can try to help you by talk therapy, if you would call it that, just by getting it off your chest, hearing some feedback.
and yet by doing
Kinda
so,
comes to
they
you.
influence your
Yeah.
interpretation of it. Sorry, I
Exactly.
didn't talk over you, JM. That was rude.
Oh yeah, no, I've already reached the conclusion or the interpretation of my dream because it happened, a week ago.
Hmm.
I'm just explaining and talking about certain key points and certain aspects of the experience here now for the live stream for the sake of the audience and this and that. But
I'm
yeah,
still mad that
absolutely.
one of us weren't in a Speedo. Or
Somebody
maybe
didn't make it.
cut out.
I could at least had whipped cream on my nipples. I'm just saying.
Jumper cables and motor oil. I'm lying out.
Like if that's like a perception or a
There you go.
vision of the future or something, like I guess we'll see. Like Fire
We're
on the Mountain
influencing your dreams for
2024. Are you trying to lay out the visions of my dreams for the night, JM?
We're coming
He's trying
in.
to go
We're
heathens
coming
after
in to
dark.
power and will your dreams for tonight.
All right.
We're coming for you. We're coming for you. We're gonna see you there.
Look, I'll be there. I've been there, and I'm ready for it.
I'm staying in Texas.
But you're staying in Texas, Eric,
I'm
and
staying
I'm
in
coming
Texas.
for you too. I'm gonna be there. Just as we wrap things up, a crow flew over me yesterday, and a feather fell off and landed on the ground. What does it mean?
It means you got a cool
Who
feather.
It means you got a cool feather, and it's called molting.
Yep. It means you got a cool feather. Take it home.
Make sure
But-
you research your local laws.
Yeah. Don't pick up owl feathers. Don't pick up hawk feathers. Crow feather, you're probably okay.
Do those things. You're under certain obligations. You're under regulations.
Just don't get caught.
Yeah, just don't get caught, right, Eric? Right? You're the Gothi. You know, Zeb.
It's not against
Yeah.
the Gari law.
You guys.
I don't know
You know.
anything about feathers.
I don't know anything
Oh.
about feathers either, guys. It's just spirit manifesting itself, the Vatir manifesting itself. But we're gonna wrap this live stream up, and I
tap out.
love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, for celebrating
having us.
the 6-year anniversary of the Midgard Musings existence.
Congratulations.
And
Yep.
congratulations to all of you for being here for this duration. Thank you so much for all of your support. Be sure to check out everything that you guys see for Skogamore, Eric Shervin, James Olson, everything. Love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you all soon. Until we talk to each other again in the various platforms, may your hearth fires. This is a nod to Eric. Say it, Eric. Tell him.
May your hearth fires burn bright.
Yes, and may your ancestors smile upon you, and may the gods continue to notice you. Thank you so much.